Today I had my friend Ross on, and Rossy's been on before, and the context of this podcast is just Rossy and I waffling. But it's always just great to catch up with him and great to have a chat with him. Please check him out on Radio Oddstock and check out his own radio channel. We never got a chance to talk about it, but I love the guy dearly, and it's always just brilliant to talk to him. Thank you, as always, for listening. Hello, and hello again, and welcome to the podcast again. And yeah, you're right. I have been recording and never bothered doing the introduction, and we've been talking for 5 minutes already.
Well, I'm just, careful not to kind of overshare, share stuff
Yeah.
with the world that maybe, it's kind of in our personal conversation.
Yeah, the irony that I was just sort of saying that, now I've got a new laptop and things have updated, it's started to be more professional, and you're the one that reminded me we had to start the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I mean, you've nearly, have you done 100? Have you done 100 episodes? I know you've done over 50.
Seven, I think this
You
is
know,
seven. I think this will be 70, but don't quote me on that. It'll either be
oh, okay.
68, 69. It's in that. It's getting that way. It's quite daunting, really. That not daunt. No, daunting's the wrong way of describing it. But there's this kind of realization that, oh shit, I've done a few of these now. I should have at least figured out how to do them.
Is it though, like from your perspective, is it getting easier?
Yeah, yeah. I tell you what, the things that are getting easier are the things you don't think about. Um, like I don't know why, but when I first started doing the podcasts, there became a point when I kind of naturally run out of people who could just introduce me to other people.
Mm.
And so I actually had to start reaching out to people and trying to figure out how do you get people to come on the podcast and ask them. And I found it quite intimidating because it's that kind of who the hell are you to just cold call somebody you've never met and say, "Oh, by the way, any chance you could come on my podcast because I need guests?" And yeah, that I found that really intimidating, and I also found it quite at times quite demoralizing because I remember one day sending out like about 20, 30 emails and nobody replied, and you just like,
See,
oh, right, it's like that, is it? And then you start to realize that some people are just really flat out busy, and some people you're just a small platform, so they're not interested. The only times it really pissed me off are when people agree to come on and then don't reply to your messages to actually set it up. So you'll have a dialogue
yeah,
with them over a few messages.
yeah, yes,
Sometimes
yeah.
even yeah. So you've obviously had the same, and
I have. Yeah, it's exactly the same with the radio. Obviously
yeah,
from a different perspective. They send us a single and say, "Hey, could you play this?" And we'd love to come on and talk. So you're like, right, brilliant. We're going to play your record. Come on and tell us a little bit more about your record. And then, as you say, nothing then happens.
yeah,
And strangely, it happened recently, and it did really annoy me because we sent a message to a band, and they're going to remain anonymous, but they were performing locally, and we like sent a message like way ahead, probably like you do, kind of
yeah,
meticulous with the preparation. And yeah, so we sent a message, and they're like, right, that's brilliant. What's your number? Da da da. So gave them the number, and they were like, right, okay, we'll let you know when we're there at the venue, and we'll sort out a time. So I was like, oh yeah, cool. Let us know. Thanks very much. Playing your single, blah blah blah. All of that stuff that you do. And then yeah, it got to that day, and then just like nothing at all.
yeah. I haven't had it that bad yet. The ones what I've had, I think
It's
about
coming.
3 or 4 times is because people don't realize there's often like 3, 4, sometimes even 5, 6 messages, and sometimes these things might
Yeah,
take. I suppose in theory, the longest one that's taken me to set up is 18 months.
yeah,
From when
yeah.
they originally agreed to come on to when I actually got them on. Um, but more often than not, if it's somebody I don't know and haven't had a formal introduction with, um, it's normally probably 4 weeks in the planning. to
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
messaging each other, setting it up, and then it might be a few weeks before they actually come on. And the ones that really piss me off um, is when they say, "Yeah, that would be great. Um, touch base with me tomorrow, and we'll set a date." So you
Yeah.
follow that up per their instructions, and you never hear from them again. And you just like
Yeah. Yeah.
just say it's not for me. I have genuinely really appreciate when someone says not it's not for me, thank you. But it
Yeah.
pisses me off when they say, "Yeah, that'd be great. Let me, let's talk dates."
I have to say as well that with that though, Dave, have you found, because we tend to find this, that sometimes, for example, we've had like a guest on, and we talked about them, shared their music, and then we go, and it's like DJ talk of, like, you say, right, you must come back, tell us about your new single, and that there are some that you're genuinely interested in. There's others you think, cannot be
Mm.
bothered with this. But the ones that, like, genuinely interested to say, oh yeah, you're on way back in December. Do you want to come on and do all that? And there's been a little bit of fame involved since then. We are like ghosted. It just does not happen. It's just like, what?
Um, and actually, that's I'll tell you what, I'll have to on that note, I'll have to say fair play to Zuby because when I first connected with Zuby, he only had like about 10, 15,000 followers or something, and he literally I'd been messaging him and he'd always reply. He genuinely had always replied. And
Yeah,
I was like, "Hey, look, I've started a podcast. Would you like to come on it?" And he's like, "Look, things are a bit busy now. Why don't we aim for
yeah,
December?" I was like, "Yeah, that'd be great." So I messaged him in December and he was just like, "Look, I can't do it now. We'll have to try and do something next year." Right. But what happened is he'd then blown up.
yeah.
Right. And when I say blown up, he'd been on Sky, GB News, Fox
But
News, CNN.
this is the same with this one I'm talking about. They were on
Yeah,
Radio 2,
he
Chris
got
Evans,
invited. He got invited to
yeah.
meet Donald Trump at the White House when Donald Trump was president. He's got
Oh,
like a
wow.
million followers, and there's me like. So anyway, mate, we still on for this podcast, and do you know what? He was on it about a month ago. He finally came on about a month ago after about 18 months, and I've got to say, look, credit where credit's due.
Zuby, did you say Zuby?
Yeah, yeah, Zuby the
I
rapper,
I think I saw. He's a podcaster as well, isn't
the podcaster, rapper,
he?
author, yeah,
Yeah, because I think I
political
generally,
speaker.
yes, he was talking about. And no, I'm not even going to get into this on this podcast. But
Yeah, we
if
can if you
this is the
want.
guy I'm thinking about, he was doing Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, yeah, he's massively against Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, that was where I saw him.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
he's
Zuby.
on
He
national
was really
TV all the time.
intelligent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's what I'm saying. I've got to give him credit where
yeah,
credit's due, and he was a great guy to talk to. Um, the initial like when we came on for Zoom when him and I connect, because he was in I think
yeah,
Atlanta when I finally kind of, and let's just say it took a long time to 18 months in theory to get him on after he initially
yeah,
agreed,
yeah.
but like he did
Yeah.
eventually do
He,
it.
he stuck to his word.
Yeah, he did, and I got to say hats off to him because I'm a very small podcast in comparison to his audience, right?
But
And
then
that,
it's the small ones though that do better. I think, without kind of blowing smoke up you. That's,
oh
sometimes
yeah,
when you've got a lesser known podcast, you haven't got such a presenter that's like full of it. As you say, you just let the person talk. You
yeah,
get a feel for the
yeah.
guest.
And I was very lucky because he knows how to talk. He's
Yeah,
he's very smart, very articulate. But I remember as soon as it came on, the funny thing is, because when I'd set up to do it, we were in winter time. And of course, the clocks had
yeah,
gone forward, and he had
yeah,
moved. It took about 4 weeks to set up the dates and time. And during that time, the clocks had gone forward. He was in
yeah,
America and had changed states. And I was just like, I don't even know where he is now. And he reached out to me on Instagram about half an hour before and said, "Hey, something about the time." I said, "Yeah, yeah," because clocks had gone forward. I wasn't sure what the score was, and he said, "That's." And he was like, "No, no problem, and I will be ready in half an hour." And I was like, oh, great,
Wow.
this is fantastic. But then when he
Yeah.
came on, I was like, hey, how's it going? And he said, yeah, good, thanks. He said, I was like, he went, yeah, good, thanks. And he went, just to let you know, the meeting says an hour and a half. You've got an hour. I was like,
Wow.
okay, okay. But do you know what? He was absolutely brilliant. He was brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was, and like I said, at the end of it, it did go really well. He was
Yeah.
very in the moment. He really was present, and he was really there. And
Mm.
and there was no, and it was me like just look, just want to be respectful of your time. So
Mm.
and I'll round up, and he was great. He was absolutely great. But it's just weird that, like I said, you and I are talking about. There's some people they just don't want to know, and then there's
Yeah.
people that commit to something and then get famous and blow up
Yeah.
and get and do really important things. And then there's me. It's like, so anyway, you still interested in doing my podcast?
Yeah.
But I'll always let that be a lesson that if mine ever blows up and I'm suddenly the guy with 1 million followers, if
Yeah.
I've agreed to do something with somebody, I'll still do it.
Stick to your roots. Either that's
Yeah,
it. Yeah. Wow. No. Yeah. It was really interesting what he was saying the other day. Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
was
I
the other
enjoyed that
thing.
one.
That was the other thing I think that threw him as well because I didn't want to talk to him about politics. I didn't want.
No. 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 Please. I was good. You do politics. I'm hitting leave. I'm hitting the leave button.
Yeah, I look. I agree with pretty much everything he says. It's just not. I mean, if
I
somebody
do
wants
like
to
some of
talk
your
about,
tweets, though. I have to say, your tweets always do offer a perspective.
yeah, because I do like to I like to try and understand other people's points of view. Um, but one of the things that I find like it is sometimes people can misinterpret your point of view,
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
look, you and I were talking about something the other day, like times were simpler in the 80s. That's not
Well,
the same as
that's
saying
what
they
it
were
was.
better.
No, that's exactly right. We were having a bit of a reminisce, wasn't it? You were saying about
Yeah,
that, and I was like, oh yeah, remember the cassette tapes, wasn't it? And the wind up.
yeah,
We
that's what I
didn't
mean.
we
Yeah,
didn't have to scroll through stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and there was less distractions, less things you could get involved in,
Yeah.
etc., etc.
Yeah.
And for me, there was a part of me that would love the world to have stopped at 1989 and just let's go back and redo the 80s. Because I love it's just and it is
Yeah.
nostalgia and it's nostalgia without having to have learned, you know, having jobs, having breakups, ended up
Yeah.
bankrupt, and all of these
Yeah.
things that have nearly broken me 100 times. It's just like none of that had happened yet. So I probably, so like most people, when you remember your teenage years, in a sense, I mean, God knows what it had been like to have been an adult in the 80s, trying to get a job, an adult in a recession. That was a really dire recession. Black Wednesday, I think in '86, really did, bring the country down.
Black Thursday, wasn't it?
Was it Black Thursday? I thought it was Black Wednesday, but you could be right. It is.
Oh, hang on, no, sorry, no, I'm thinking of the early '90s, wasn't it? There
Yeah,
was also a
yeah.
big recession early '90s.
Well, that was because of Black Wednesday. That's how long it
Yes.
lasted.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
sure it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
86 or 87, and the stock
Yeah.
market crashed, and it never
Yeah.
recovered until the 90s. So when people talk about 2008, it's like you realise it was over after 18 months. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's it was just yeah, and but for whatever reason, and obviously it's the music as much as anything. I have a real nostalgic fondness for the 80s, the music, the films, and I just think it was like you and I were saying, a better time to be alive. It was much
Well,
simpler.
I just think it was simpler because as you were saying, like no distractions.
Hmm,
But part of it, no one's like just arguing the whole time.
that's
you
it.
know,
We were in a
as you
Cold
say,
War with Russia.
misinterpretation.
Yeah, but we were in the Cold War with Russia, so we already knew who we were arguing with. We already had an enemy,
Yeah.
and everyone was happy with that. They didn't like
Well,
us. We
they
didn't
didn't
like
have time
them.
to hack into Zoom and God
But do
knows
you know what I
what
mean?
back then.
They didn't like us. We didn't like them. Nobody knew why, but nobody asked why either. We just
Yeah. Yeah.
accepted it.
Yeah. Yeah.
we were quite well. It just seems to be the way it is, and that'll do us fine. And yeah, so it's yeah. I try to when I tweet, I I try not to get into arguments with people because you
Just
realise,
don't.
yeah, but it's hard. The problem is by the
Do you not?
time I've got
Yeah,
into it, I realise what you're doing.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, but it's easy to do though, isn't it? Like,
Too
what's it?
easy.
You could exactly. It's either what's it? It's either you're right or you're wrong. There's no like middle bit because there's something. What did I put out the other day? I put something out that was just totally. Oh, it was just like a boring tweet that if anyone wants to read it, feel free to. But it didn't set the world alight. But it was just like, oh, I'm listening to this album. A little bit of like lazy lyrics on it. A lot could have been thought of a little bit better. Blah blah blah. Not kind of worth the hype, but listen to it. Something simple like that. Not kind of stating anything horrible, but as you can imagine, loads of people found offence because it was some big star and like, oh no, I was in tears. It's like that's fine, but it just wasn't for me. I'm not saying that,
Yeah,
but
this is what I mean. It's just
it's crazy.
once upon a time, nobody gave a fuck what I thought, and
No,
now
no.
so random guy, woman, somebody doesn't know what they are, actually will
Don't forget
suddenly
an egg. Don't forget an egg. An
do
egg
you know what I mean?
account as well.
It just will suddenly care that I have an opinion on something that
Mm.
I just shared instead of just like, do you know what I mean? It's just like, all right, well, I don't care. It's like, oh, it's just um, somebody said to me, and and we don't have to get into this because you and I have never actually discussed the fact that you're gay, right? Because it's
Yeah,
never
yeah.
occurred to me that it's any of my business.
It's none of your business.
But you know what I mean? It's just like, and everyone's going on about this footballer and how brave and courageous it is. And
Mm.
it's not that I don't care. I would care if he was getting abused because that's out of order. I
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
it's not any of my
yeah.
business.
He potentially probably is now. I mean, did you see some of the comments after that? Just on
Yeah.
like a Sky Sports Facebook page. So it's not like a right wing thing, but like no, if you have a look at Sky Sports after, it's like terrible. It's just like, come on, seriously, man.
This is the thing, right? Obviously, it's like, you and I, before we started, were talking about the wedding, and obviously you were there with Ryan. And I was about to say,
Yeah.
I still owe Ryan an apology. So just to give reference to this, Rossi and Ryan
Oh,
turned up
I'll tell him this after the
right.
the chat.
Rossi
I'll
and
tell
Ryan
him.
turned up at the wedding. Well, I did apologise to him, but he's just too nice, right? Rossi and Ryan turned up at the wedding. I'd already been at the wedding and was drinking, and even
Hmm.
though I knew that you and Ryan were staying at the hotel down the road, you turned up, and I automatically got you some wine, and then stood there. And
Yeah.
5 minutes later, realised, oh, Ryan, I haven't got you a drink. Do you want a drink? And he was like, oh, yeah, please. And I was like, look, I'm really sorry. Profusely, I apologise. He's like, it's all right. It's all right. And I was thinking, no, it's not all right. I just assumed because you always drive that you were
Yeah.
driving, even though I knew you were staying at the hotel. Right. But
But the crazy thing is,
he didn't say anything. If you did that to me, I'd be, oi, where's my fucking drink?
saying that though, what's it? The crazy thing is, though, recently though, is I've been doing all the driving everywhere because we've had a little bit of fun out and about, going to
Yeah.
some music gigs and all that, and I've been doing the driving, so it all balances out.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure it does. But you know what I mean? It was just the way
Yes.
that I got you a drink straight away, and you and I were there drinking, and then I was just like, oh, Ryan probably wants a drink, and it never occurred to me to ask him, and I was just like, oh, I'm so sorry, but he's so nice. He doesn't say anything.
You're gonna have to apologise to him after this. After you hit end of record, it's like a personal apology. You can't get out of
No,
this one.
I did genuinely apologise to him at the time, but he's just like, oh, it's fine, don't worry about it. And it's just like, no, stop being so bloody nice. But yeah, do you know what I mean? So it's like when I see these things, like because obviously, and this is what I'm saying about things were simpler, but that doesn't mean they were better or easier, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just
yeah.
like, so people talk about his courage for coming out, etc., etc. I don't know what that means. I've never had to come out.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? I literally, so I don't want to belittle anything because maybe it did take a lot of courage. Maybe it is really difficult. I've no idea. I've never done it. It's just like, and then when people go on about it, I'm just like, but it I don't care who you are, who you're in love with, who you're sleeping with, who your partner is. It's just not any of my business,
Yeah.
unless
It's
I'm
your
accident.
performance on the pitch.
Would you just? But I
That's
don't care if you're.
that's what it should be all about to the old football supporters, isn't
But
it?
you,
You
yeah,
know.
but yeah, yeah, exactly. But I don't care if you're a footballer, an athlete, a singer, actor. I don't care who you are, what you do in your private life, as long as it's consensual, not too illegal.
Of
It's
course,
yeah, it's
of
not.
course,
It
very
just
good.
isn't any of my business, is it? And that's how I've always
No.
looked at it. It's just like I don't understand. But like I say, and this is the thing that where things like with Twitter can go wrong because
Mm,
it doesn't mean I don't support the fact you shouldn't get abuse about it. It's
yeah,
just no, I'm not sorry. It's just it's not any of my business. I'm sorry you're getting abuse,
yeah.
but I'm not sorry that I don't have some big opinion about it because I just anybody, whoever you are, your relationship status, unless it's directly connected to me
Mm,
or it's I don't care because it's not my business, and I don't, and that's I think the bit where I get confused in the world because people get really into this. Your business is my business, and you're supposed to care, but I don't, and nor does anyone else really, if they're being honest.
Let's be honest, people do care because that's why they post all this stuff, isn't it? You know, I mean, for certain people, it's like all about attention, and then
Well,
you've
that's
got
the
some people
difference.
that
Is
post
there's
all this stuff.
caring,
And there's other people that post all the stuff because they think, oh, this is what so and so follows. I'm going to post this, and in it,
but that's
it's
the
all like
difference. Is
about
there's caring and attention seeking.
yeah. Oh
Uh,
God, yeah,
because obviously I care about my close friends and what their relationships are like. But a random person or an influential person who I've never met, it genuinely isn't any of my business.
yeah.
It
Saying that
just,
though, here's a question for you, Dave. Right, I was thinking about this the other day because we were talking about this. Me and Rise, we were talking about this the other day. And obviously you've got like the YouTube influencers, and you got now obviously the TikTok influencers and all
yeah.
that lot. Have you ever bought anything of anyone that's influencing? Because we were thinking, no, we haven't at all.
I actually, yeah, I have bought some of Zuby's. Zuby
Okay.
does, he has a book called Strong Advice, which is a coaching and training book, a physical training book. Um, and yeah, I bought that because Um, I'm into I like physical training books. Do you know what I mean? It is, and
Yeah,
it's actually a good book. He genuinely knows his stuff. He can genuinely write.
yeah,
It's quite short and sweet in a nice way. He doesn't fluff it up with
yeah.
things. It's just like, look, this is basically what you need to do because exercise is a lot simpler than people realize, and when it starts getting over complicated, it's really just influencers trying to sell you stuff. Um, uh,
Yeah, sorry, yeah, that's sorry, that's what I meant. Influencers like that. I mean, because I'm
no,
guilty of like
no.
following like my favorite author or whatever, and they say got a new book coming out,
Mm,
whatever. I'll go for that. Sorry. And then all of these that like do all the Instagram lives or the TikTok lives,
no,
and
no,
they've
I
got the
don't buy
latest hair product, which is useless for me, but
it. No, I've never bought off. I'm trying to think. Have I bought off any? No, no, I haven't.
no,
And interestingly, there's a guy who's very big on TikTok called Jason Capital, and he does a lot. He's one of these guys that sells copywriting courses and stuff like that. But
yeah,
he has a big following. He seems to be able to, from what I can tell, back up what he says. And I know
mm,
some of the seminars he's done. He's actually he films them for content. He actually says to people like, "How many of you are surprised that this actually is free and you're not being sold anything?" And like they all put
yeah,
their hands up, thinking we thought we were going to be conned. And he's just like, "No," he
yeah,
said, "like genuinely, I get 30 of you in here and I do a seminar with you for free, but I get to use all of the content and all of your content of being here." And he talked about a bikini model. He didn't name her, but he talked about a
yeah,
bikini model who came to see him and said, "Look, I want your advice as an influencer," because she had like 1 million
mm,
followers or whatever it was. And she said, "But nobody's buying my products." And he says, "Because you don't sell any products that your followers buy." He says,
yeah,
"You're
yeah,
a
yeah,
bikini model and you sell lingerie and bikini. 90% of your followers are men. He said, so unless you're going to sell,
Surprise.
yeah, and he said, unless you're selling some form of dick pills or some form of course on how to get a woman like me into bed, you're not selling anything
Yeah,
they're interested in. He said
yeah,
they're
yeah.
not going to buy makeup, lingerie, or bikinis. He says you've got to think of they are effectively lusting, thirsting after you. So you
Yeah,
either you have to sell them some sort of idea that you can
yeah,
get me, or sell them some form of sex performance
yeah,
to satisfy me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, it just got me thinking because obviously, I mean, there's loads of stuff, and I mean, I'm guilty of watching trash TV like anyone else, and every now and then, even if you're watching like celebrity quizzes these days, it's like they come on, they go, "I'm an influencer," and you're like, "Who?" And you're scrolling through, and I'm like,
I do
"Never
that
going
all
to
the
buy
time.
anything off them."
I do that all
Yeah,
the time. Whenever I see somebody that, because as you know, I don't watch TV. So,
yeah,
because I find it fun, because I love reading your tweets. Because when I read your tweets, I start knowing what's on Netflix and everything else. So, so that's what people's watching at the
yeah,
moment.
yeah, yeah,
Because I don't. And although my mum watches a lot of TV, she watches a lot of old TV. She
yeah,
loves all the old programs, all the old films. It doesn't matter that she's watched the same series 400 times, you know.
yeah,
And yeah, TV. I just don't bother with it. I like films, you know. I do like
yeah,
TV. I just don't sit there and watch it. Um, so I don't know what's going on. So I don't even know people who are actually famous. And unless they're on some quiz show like The Chase, because that's what my mum watches a lot of, and things
yeah.
like that, I've no idea who they are. So I'm the same as you. If I see something, oh, who's that? And then I go and look them up and see
Yeah.
what it is they do. And like I didn't even know, even though I watch a lot of YouTube and stuff, I didn't know who people like Jake Paul were and KSI were until they started boxing.
No, no. I don't know who they are. I mean, I don't. Obviously, I know that they're from boxing, but I don't really kind of know what they
No,
do.
but they're not. They're YouTubers.
Yeah,
It's like Logan Paul or Jake Paul. Well, they're brothers, aren't they? Logan Paul and Jake Paul. They've like 80
that's
million
it.
followers.
Yeah, yeah,
Like it's like, and of course, it's like they're like the biggest people on YouTube or something. And I was just like,
yeah. And
I don't know
KSI
you.
can't be
I've
that far
never watched.
behind.
Yeah, I've never watched you. And of course, and that's the thing as well. There's this whole generation now where the only thing they watch is YouTube,
Yeah.
and they don't know anything about what's on TV. And it's like when people go on about the BBC, like defund the license, and I am one of them. But it's just you don't need to worry about it because as every generation dies off, they're not going to be watching the TV anyway.
No,
They're going to be
no.
watching YouTube. So they're just like, it's going to get to a point. There'll be a generation that will be like, "Oh, you got a TV license. You need to get a TV license for the BBC." And they'll be like,
Oh,
What's the?"
don't start me on this one.
Well, they'll be like, What's the BBC?"
Yeah. Well, don't honestly, Dave. It's a contentious issue because it's the same for us. As you say from my tweets, you know what's going on the Netflix or the streaming things. I haven't sat down and watched anything on BBC for a while. I'm not into the antiques, or I'm not into
But then you
you
don't have
know.
to have a TV license, do you? So
Yeah, because without like being really boring, because like on Amazon Prime they got the sports and the football. You got to pay.
on Amazon,
Yeah, because it's a live TV. Well, of course it's a live
I
TV.
thought it was only if you
Yeah.
watch BBC Live.
No, it's not. That's what I thought. No, it's not.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So if you watch any form of live TV, so you sat watching the chase, you're gonna have to have a TV license that day.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Or your mum is.
Yeah, no, that's my mum's department. I pay for the subscriptions. I don't pay
Yes.
for a license for TV. I don't watch. You know, it is.
But yeah,
But it.
yeah, no, yeah, it is. Yeah, because we were like looking into it, as you were saying, and yeah, we were like, oh god, you can't watch like the football on the Amazon, or it's crazy, crazy.
I didn't realise that was true. Honestly, I didn't.
Yeah, it's on the Q&As of the TV licensing website. It's a cracking read.
Little Friday night entertainment. What did you do? Well, I read the question and answers for BBC licensing because that's how I
And we're
roll.
going to do a pub quiz on it.
Yeah,
We're going to do a pub quiz on Monday. Section 4.3. It says about this.
Thing is, I get into things like that. I do end up reading rules and regulations, and I really get engrossed in it because
Just to say I can break them, deviate around them.
that is I've won I've won I have won compensation at tribunals for holidays and stuff like that because I
Oh
just read
wow.
the rules. I read the rules in 2000. I managed to get a full refund plus compensation for 10 of us
Oh
for a
wow.
holiday
Oh, that's
that
all right.
went for a holiday that went wrong in Iron Effort, and I completely just kept reading the rules. It's like, okay, so it doesn't matter what they say. You just like, yeah, no, we're going to go to the tribunal, and they kept sending me like, well, we'll do this, we'll do this, we'll do this,
Yeah.
and they kept sending me checks, and I just kept ripping the checks up and saying, no, no,
And I
no.
bet they got bigger, did they?
They were not much bigger, and then suddenly the day before they're due to go to the tribunal,
Yeah.
I got a check for I think £2,500.
Yeah.
I think it was two and a
Yeah.
half thousand. Was it? No, it was £5,000 because we all got
Yeah.
500 quid back each for a £250
Yeah.
holiday.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
But
No. No.
you've got to
Yeah. So
really
yeah, that.
read the small print, and that they'd got it wrong, and I was able to prove that.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, with the TV license, not quite yet. But if you find a way around it, do let us know, please.
I am actually intrigued, and I will look into that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's the BBC. Yeah.
That's not good, is it?
I mean, it's like I said to Rice the other day. This is really quite funny. I said to him the other day. I went, Rice. I went, for God's sake. I said, he was there listening to Radio 2, and I went, I can't put up with Radio 2. It's like too modern these days. What's going on?
You say that, but you tweeted the other day, because you quite rated Harry Styles' new album.
No, I didn't. That's the one I
Is
didn't
that the
rate.
one? Is that the one you didn't
Yes,
rate?
that's the one that with all the hype. Yeah, no, I didn't. It was the live lounge that was okay because he did a radio one, BBC. He did a live lounge. I listened to like that little snippet of the podcast that they kind of made and put live tracks. That was good, but yeah, the album,
No.
yeah, it was like there's probably like one good song on there, Cinema.
Yeah, because I mean, I
You could take it or leave it.
yeah, because I try not to be because I'm not a big music person, and I try not to be cynical when I see boy bands that do well afterwards. Yeah.
See, I bought the other solo album. That's great. Can't fault it. So I'm not like just bashing it for the sake of it. I bought the last one and I loved it. And it was like brilliant.
Well,
But
because
this
people
one is
forget,
just a bit lazy.
but people do forget that One Direction, although they were a manufactured band, they actually all could sing, and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
weren't
They weren't like the
untalented.
Spice Girls.
No, you heard it here. For like yeah, but it's true, because they were all they nearly made it. If I remember correctly, they nearly made it through to the final, didn't, and Simon Cowell decided, I know what, I will put you together as a boy band, as because
That was it.
they had all
Yeah,
gone as
they were all
solo,
separate, weren't they?
yeah, they'd
Yeah,
all gone as soloists, and they weren't quite there. So Simon Cowell, and that's why he's smart and got lots of money,
that's
was
what he
like,
does.
yeah, he's just like, let's turn you into a boy band, and I think they came second, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
I don't remember who came first, but um, that's everything you need to know about who come first.
yeah. Oh, hang on. Do you know? I think I might have interviewed them. Hang on. I'll Google this. Just talk amongst yourselves, everyone.
Well, here's something, right, that shocked me, and I know you're going to know this, but
Yeah,
one of my favourite songs from the 80s is Tiffany, I Think We're Alone Now.
I think we're alone now. Yeah.
And recently
Oh,
I
Matt
discovered
Cardle.
Matt Carter, was that who came first?
Yeah,
Wow, I thought he was supposed, because yeah, he was somebody that was supposed to blow up and go massive, and I don't think
he did. He
anything.
performed in Salisbury.
Okay,
He had a little caravan at the side and
because
fireworks. So,
he had quite a good voice if I remember correctly.
yeah, he did. He did, but he fell out with Simon Cowell, so it wasn't going to work, was it?
Well,
Don't
I
slag
don't
off the
think
boss.
any of them have done well, have they? Since I think
Not really. No.
the only one I think that had some success, Will Young had some success, didn't he?
Oh yeah, yeah, that was Pop Idol.
But that was still under Simon Cowell.
Yeah,
Um, and the other one, Leona Lewis, had some success
yeah, she did.
until she
She
broke
cracked
away from.
America.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she made it in America, and but I think her success kind of diminished when she'd fallen out with Simon Cowell.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry, back to Tiffany, and I think we're alone now.
Oh no, because it's a valid point, though, isn't it? Because you get all of these people, and it's just like, look, the common denominator here is if you fall out with Simon Cowell, that's the end of your career. And
Yeah, he just finishes it. He's washing his hands, and that's it.
oh, it's just one of the because what happens is people is that they all get. I want to be artistic. I want to have my own voice. And Simon
Yeah,
Cowell's just like, I'm sorry, but nobody cares about that. And if you're
yeah,
not going to
yeah,
make me a ton of money, I don't care about it either. And all of
yeah,
these people, what you need to do is like get a few cheesy albums under you, with the likes of
yeah,
Simon Cowell, and then sort of say, look, is there any chance I can do a couple of my own tracks on the next album? Do you know
yeah.
what I mean? You need to kind of like somebody needs to set them aside and say, look, guys, you're pretty dumb because you've got no self-preservation. This is how the world works.
Yeah, you've already
Stick,
sold your soul with all the contracts anyway, probably with whatever's on the contract.
but they don't. The problem I think that happens to them is they think they're the golden goose, and you're like, no, no,
Yeah,
that Sony and Simon Cowell is the golden goose, and without the
yeah,
golden goose, nobody. You don't get the producers, you don't get the studio time, you don't get the media coverage because there
yeah,
is nobody to back you because that's how the industry works, and that's how every industry works. It's not just them, you know. So yeah, so what I was going to say, so it's like I, like going through one of those. Um, every now and again, I'll like have a massive like splurge on 80s music and just listen to it like for days on end.
no, that's
And
what I call 80s.
it's fantastic. Um, and I was listening to 'cause I say one of my favorites, but there isn't a favorite if you know what I mean. It's just like I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
love it.
yeah, because you ain't the music kind of guy. You're just the greatest hits kind of guy.
I am, yeah, that is who I am. I'm a greatest hits kind of guy. Um, but I was listening to Tiffany, I think we're alone now, and for the first time, I realised or discovered it's a cover.
Yeah.
Don't tell me you don't know this,
I know, seriously, I don't generally know this.
because I wrote this down in my diary because we were going to do this last week. I wrote this down. It was originally written and performed and was a hit for the Shane Dello,
Okay.
1966.
Oh,
Don't tell me I know something about music you don't know.
yeah, Jenny, you do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I didn't know that. I'm
Yeah,
going to remember that for my covers game.
I was reading the YouTube comments and somebody said her mum, when she was a kid, was singing it, and her mum went, "Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
loved this when I was a kid," and she was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Yes, this was by
yeah, just like 80s.
yeah, yeah, it wasn't yeah Shondello, 1966, the Shondello,
Shondello.
yeah."
Okay.
I think we're alone now. Yeah, they had a few hits, but I think we're alone now was one of them, and it's
Oh,
just like
I'll check that one out.
yeah, because I'm sure at the time I remember that she blew up and was massive off that song, and it was pitched as
Yeah.
her song, but yeah, no, it was a cover, and I was just
Did you
like,
know Soft Cell and this is an 80s one for you, Dave? Did you know Soft Cell and Tainted Love? Did you know that's not an original either?
yeah, I knew that was a cover. I knew later
Uh,
in life that was a cover.
yeah, yeah.
I think it was around the same time I was listening to an interview with Paul Young,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they asked him if he had any regrets, and he said, "Yeah, I wish I'd written my own songs." And I was
Wow.
just like, "Oh, hang on a second." And you look at it, and yeah,
Yeah.
and a lot of his were covers, and other people have written them to. Um, yeah, 'cause it's amazing. You don't realize. I think what it was is up until the 80s, there was no keyboard music because keyboards kind of
No, the
with
synth.
with Yamaha and Casio came out in the 80s, earlier, well, probably the late 70s, but the music took off in the 80s. And suddenly you had this electronic music, which just sounded completely different. You had
Mm,
synthesizers, like the way that the Beatles recorded tracks revolutionized music.
mm.
I'm trying to, because yeah, that's how they did it, wasn't it? It's they played, they recorded music in layers, and
That's it. Yeah,
they were the
layered
first.
track. Yeah,
Yeah, they. I think the Beatles were the first people to do that and pioneered it. Um, for people that didn't realize that, that's kind of one of the things that made the Beatles sound so different and gave them that unique sound. Um, a recording technique, and that's the
yeah,
thing
yeah.
that when we got to the 80s and Casio and Yamaha came out with keyboards and synthesizers, there were sounds that had never been heard before ever, and you could alter a, original tracks and make them sound completely different.
Mm.
And yeah, so a lot of bands did a lot of cover music that sounded like it was original.
I used to have a Casio keyboard as a kid. I'd knocked my mum for one of those for Christmas.
Hmm.
Couldn't make a tune or anything out of it, but it was great going with all the auto stuff
Yeah,
and pressing a few buttons.
that's what I remember about, the keyboards, pressing a few buttons,
Yeah,
pressing this, because do you remember there used to be like that beat function on them, and
yeah,
it had an
yeah.
automatic
It used
drum
to make it
beat.
sound like a drum and all sorts.
Yeah,
On
and
you,
and
you put in a code and you go. It'd be
yeah,
great.
and that's it. And the keys would play different drums and different symbols, because that's the thing. People who really got into it actually started making music like that. Because you could, I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
know how to do it, but you could record
No,
it
me neither.
back through the keyboard.
Yeah,
And then people would like, so they'd lay down a drum, like a beat and a drum beat, and then they'd lay down a bit of a bass, and then they'd come out with all of these things off a keyboard in their bedroom. And it just completely changed how music sounded for me. um
did you ever learn to play anything on a keyboard? Because I know at school we had like music lessons and like you can imagine as soon as the keyboard come out, we're like, oh, this is a great day,
I think like
and
the
we had
standard
like our own headphones.
people taught you how to do Josh Joplin, didn't they? The entertainer.
Scott Joplin, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
My
Scott
school must
Joplin.
have been quite posh because they taught us Beethoven and Fur Release.
All right, no, I
But
learned
anything
like,
like this,
I think like most people in music lessons, you learn a few basics on, and then like most boys in their teenage years, I got a guitar and tried to learn to play the guitar, and I could play like, I learned a few things like I could play Painted Black, by the Rolling Stones and stuff like that, but it's the problem with that. It's just very well rehearsed.
yeah,
No, and there's no freestyling. There's no nothing, and but no, I never learned. I n- it's funny for me, musical instruments, because I always liked the idea of playing the piano.
yeah,
I like, there's something about the piano that just sitting there and playing always appealed to me much more than playing a guitar. Um, but I just don't understand music, and even though when I've tried to learn to play music and learn to read music, it kind of makes sense in the moment, but it is just not something that I grasp
mm,
with. Yeah, just it was very much really clumsy all the time. And sometimes, there's sometimes you try to learn something and it's really difficult, but you never lose the interest in it, and you stay
yeah,
intrigued,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you stay pulled into the idea of learning it, and even when you feel a bit deflated, you're just like, yeah, yeah, but bugger it,
It kind of makes you want to go even more. Of like, I'm gonna
yeah.
do this. Gonna
And
put
then
the
there's
keyboard.
other
Yeah,
things you learn because you're interested, and you just pick it up quite naturally. Well,
yeah,
neither of those happen to me with music, and I don't have a natural beat. It's like, I remember somebody pointing out to me, um, like, you do understand there's four beats to the bar, don't you? And I was like, what's the bar? And they're like, right,
yeah.
if you,
Well,
and they
I know that. That's the line, and it depends
yeah,
on what note you've got. Depicts
but
like the break in the music.
yeah, but they were like, do you realize how out of time you are? And I was just like, no. and they was just like they literally while we were listening to some music, like on the radio, so it's like right, you hear this song, right? Every time you hear that, that's the
Yeah,
beat,
yes.
that's the timing, that's the rhythm, and I was just like,
Yeah.
never heard of that. You know, I'd heard the words, but nobody had
Yeah,
ever.
yes.
Where some people just naturally are tapping their shoe, tapping their foot
Yeah.
naturally to it. People are looking at me thinking I'm having a seizure because they're like, I don't know what he's tapping to. And I was always that kid. I was always that. I never really just I just never managed to pick up music, and that you have to have an ear for it. I think to a degree
Mm,
to hear
yeah.
things, and I don't, which is probably why I like greatest hits and cheesy shit music.
Yeah. Well, there's
But
a
then I
place
do
that.
like some random stuff, like I was listening to, I can't remember where she's from. She's multinational, but a lady called Fabian. Lara Fabian. She's like,
Yeah.
oh mate, I'll send you some links to some of her music.
Yeah. Send me some.
She
Yeah.
does
Yeah.
this great piece from Dr. Zhivago. She does. It's got a great track which she sings in the Dr. Chicago. Zhivago. She sings in Russian. Um,
Oh, good.
yeah, and she has this great piece called Je suis marmalade, which means in French, I think it means I'm sick, and it's like a love song,
Okay.
and she sings it in French.
Oh,
And I tell you, her voice is just, and her mood is just
yeah.
mind boggling. You know what I mean? And I can
Yeah.
listen to
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
repeat if I'm in the mood for that. And there's these weird French songs and stuff like that that I listen to. If I listen, do you know what I mean? I'll hear a song in
Yeah. Yeah.
French.
Yeah. A bit of culture. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I just it's yeah, it's something like 1960, like the 60s French music was nice. There's something about that, you know, because the French were all like cigarettes, moody and pissed off.
That's it. Yeah.
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 Oh,
Yeah.
and we'll drink on top of that.
Oh, yeah. Which always gave you good music.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, it's just like,
Oh,
yeah.
I'll check that out.
I'll
Yeah.
send you. There's three songs in particular that I listen to, and yeah, phenomenal voice, just amazing voice. But it's good to watch her because she's
Yeah.
like really emotional when she sings, and I'm just
Oh,
like,
right. Oh, wow.
yeah, there's a real mood to it. And there's one, if I can find the, I won't find you that clip. Well, actually, I might do. Um, but she starts to sing, and the crowd take over, and she just doesn't quite know what
Oh,
to do.
really?
Yeah, because the crowd starts singing her song, and she's just like, and it's word for word, and she's just kind of like, wow, she's just blown away by the fact the crowd. And there's something really humbling about it because she is, you can tell she's genuinely taken away that they know her song and know it so well
Yeah.
that they all just sing it, and it just happened. She went to start, and they just started singing, the whole crowd, and she's just like, wow. And
Wow.
it's just an amazing like clip to watch on YouTube. You know,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say, yeah, definitely
yeah,
send
yeah.
those our way. Yeah,
Oh
I'll
yeah,
have a
yeah.
little
I'll
tune
send them
into
over to
that.
you later. I'll send them over to you in a bit.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I'll have a tune into that.
So, but yeah, so things like that. Yeah, I kind of weird. There's random things that I'll listen to, and people like it's just not. It's just not what you expect. Because then on the other side, I'll be listening to ABBA or some flipping like Aqua or something, you know, like Barbie Girl or
That's
something.
fine. Just ABBA. Oh,
Yeah, you see that I used to be a massive fan of ABBA until I worked at the day center, and then they kind of
yeah, I
killed
know.
it.
Our job's killed ABBA. It just
Yeah.
killed it. It was like the other day. I think it was yesterday. Nancy Sinatra and these boots are made for walking. That
Oh,
was another one
that was
that's
a
kind of
great
killed it
track.
from work.
That was a great track until it got killed by to be too. Sometimes tracks can have too much airplay or too many
Yeah,
adverts or something.
yeah. That one was killed by work. There was someone that is like singing that, and oh,
Yeah.
just no, just no. That's all I think of every time I hear that. Now I'm like, oh, that's another song ruined.
Yeah, and that's what happens as well. Is and sometimes I used to have a friend of mine. Sadly, I haven't seen him for a while. He was to go around his house, and it was quite a while ago, you know, over a decade ago, because I was still smoking. And but I'd go round his house and we'd just listen to old like 60s, 70s rock tracks because he was massively into his music. Huge,
Yeah,
you know, there was nothing. And he used to have like loads of the old, was it Time Mag? No, what was the rock, the music mag?
there was time.
What was the other
There
one?
was time.
Rolling Stones was the other one, wasn't
Yes, yeah, but still going. Rolling Stone magazine, still going.
it? Is it? Well, he used to have loads of their articles and stuff like that, and he used to follow lots of people on blogs, like the old
Oh,
journalists
the
from the
old days.
60s and 70s, yeah, who used to
Yeah.
repost their articles. And I remember him getting me to listen. Forgot the name of it, but this it was a John Lennon track, and it was a real like blues, soulful blues track, and you kind of
Yeah, yeah,
realise the depth to John Lennon's voice, you know, because
yeah, yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah,
they're like that dark soul that they talk about with John Lennon. It was really in this track. You could hear it in his voice,
yeah,
and it was just like, wow, you know, that's not John Lennon as I knew him. And
yeah.
but him and I would sit there till the early hours of the morning, smoking cigarettes and drinking wine, like in like a yeah
Rock
yeah
and roll.
yeah. You know what I mean? There's something about
It's like you were
listening to
living the
music.
70s.
Yeah, but there's something about music like that, you know, and you know, lights down, just chilling out, just listening to the music. We might have smoked a bit of weed as well at the time.
I was
Um,
gonna say you must have had a substance or two to be chilled with the wine, and
yeah, yeah. Do you know, it was very mood
you
enhancing.
were transported to different places, and it wasn't
Yeah,
just the substances.
but sometimes that's how music should be listened to. You know, it's yeah. Sometimes it is lights down, the right, you know. There's a good atmosphere
The
to
right
music.
ambience. Get a candle on. I'll
Yeah,
send you a, I'll send you a cannabis infused candle or something. Read the old days.
yeah, yeah.
CBD now. Keep it legal.
Yeah, I find all of that ironic these days, you know, due to my hedonistic hobbies back in the day. Um, the idea, like when you say like people have hemp candles and CBD diffusers and all that, and it's just like, what happened to just skinning up a good joint?
You can't have that in your office, though, can you? Oh,
No,
a lovely, pretty
but you know what I
candle.
mean? It's just like, you know, we'll make everything healthy and trendy. It's just like, no, it's just like,
Well, you can put hemp on your face now in moisturising cream.
I mean, no, it's just take me back. I need to just like,
Give me the real stuff. Give me the real stuff.
well, I just like there's things that I don't get. You know, I understand now when people look at me, it's just like you're turning into a grumpy old man. It's like I am. Do you know what I mean? Things were fine as they were.
And that's why you got the podcast, so you can kind of sound off about it and be like, "This is great. Who cares?"
Yeah, there's some truth in that. You know, it's
At the end of the day, just sound off on the podcast and you'll all be great.
I tell you what though, it is good because it's amazing. I tell you what, I've had some really interesting conversations with people. I'm doing a podcast. I've got another podcast on the menopause coming up, and
Oh, I'm
I
going through that now. The manifold.
I
Joking.
tell you, it's amazing how
Yeah.
much I've learned about the menopause in the last couple of years,
Oh.
and how much women don't know about the menopause, which I found. I kind of joke that it's ironic that a middle-aged white knuckle dragger like me knows more about the menopause than 90% of the women in the country, which is a
Mm.
damning shame in one hand, but it's
It is, but you can educate us all on that one.
you know what? The thing that shocked me, like really shocked me, because I was talking to somebody. This is how I found out about it. I was talking to somebody. I had her name was is Corolla, and she originally came on to talk about the therapy that she did as a therapist.
Yeah.
And she started talking about the menopause and going through the menopause and how it made her suicidal. And I was just like, oh wow,
Oh.
you know, I didn't. And she was like, yeah, and it's really common. And I was just like, well, but
Well,
if
it really does fluctuate with.
but
I've never gone through the menopause, but it does kind of fluctuate and does all sorts
yeah,
of crazy things.
oh no, it does, and it was like on a level where you know where you immediately realise you're out of your depth in a conversation. She's like, I
Yeah,
know nothing
yeah,
about this, and I'm sure I'm not the right person to be listening. But I'm in here now, so we'll give it a go. And then it was the discovery that if you go to the GP, there's nothing they can do to
yeah.
help you. There's no test you can take. There's nothing they're going to do. They
Oh,
they literally
really?
just like, yeah, you're going
They
through the
just slap a
menopause.
few HRT patches on and
Not
up
even
you
that.
go.
Not even that.
Oh,
And sometimes and the thing is as well as you discover when you get into these conversations, you can't just go and take HRT. There can be complications and side effects that are worse
yeah,
than and you just like, oh, right. This this seems a bit weird for something, we're in the it's
yeah.
2022 now. Um and yeah, and I've got a lady coming on, um Caroline Gaskin, with talking about that next week, I think, or the week after. And she is a therapist that specializes in the menopause.
So does that mean that'll be the next podcast after this one? What?
No, no.
Oh, okay.
The
Oh no.
the
Okay.
next one, the person, I think I'll just double check. It's a lovely lady.
Here we go, everyone. Here's a sneak
Yes.
peek of what's coming next.
On Friday, I'm recording a podcast with a lady called Sharon, and that's about easy birthing, which is, I think, she's a midwife that helps you give birth at home.
Which is getting more common as well. Not that I know anything about it, but yeah, I do hear it's getting more common now.
Well, this is another conversation where I think I'm going to be very much out of my depth. So, in for a penny, in for a pound, and I will give that a go. In fairness, I have already spoken to Sharon. Like like we were saying earlier, people
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
understand that sometimes you have guests that are just happy to come on,
yeah, yeah,
guests that like to have a conversation first to see if they want to talk to you, and it's
yeah.
almost like an interview beforehand to see if there's a click. You have guests
What
that,
you should do with those though is secretly hit record and call those exclusive extras if they don't want to do it.
well, sometimes I've had this happen quite a few times where I've booked a podcast with somebody, set it up, started recording, and they just want to sound me out and see whether they want to do the podcast. And it's just like, and they're like, "Oh, were you expecting to do the podcast?" It's like, "Yeah, pretty much, but hey, it's all right. We can just rebook if you're happy to do that." And
Yeah,
thankfully, no one's ever said no afterwards. But I've booked it as a podcast, and they just like, no, no, I just want to talk to you to see if we can talk and what it is you do and why you do it, sort of thing.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, and again, you just like, okay, thanks for that. I could have done this over a mobile chat or a Zoom chat, without setting everything up. Um, but and again, some people like, because I don't have a set procedure. So
yeah. No,
it's
no. It's just how it goes, isn't it?
yeah, and they're the ones I love. And then some other people are like, so do you have any questions in advance? No.
No,
Do you want to send me some questions? No, not really.
no.
I
Yeah,
don't know what I want to ask you. Do you mind if I send you
yeah,
some question? If you want, yeah. If you want
yeah.
it,
And I'll put them in.
yeah. I just like, yeah, because sometimes you just freestyle with people, and you and I haven't shut up, and we didn't even come in with a
No, I
plan.
know. Well, do you know, I did actually come with a bit of plan, Dave, and you were kind of like really working to it, and then you just passed it. I was thinking, what a lovely way to end the podcast, because normally we always like end it with like carrying on or whatever. I was thinking, oh, he's brilliant. He's giving you a preview of all the guests coming up, and I was about to go, do you know what, Dave? That'll be a great ending. And then it's like, oh, Dave, how could you?
Why? Why? What was your plan?
Well, the plan was to kind of give you like end on the cliffhanger of like we're going to be doing the menopause next week or we're going to be doing that next week, right?
Well, the funny thing is,
But we didn't get that big cliffhanger.
no, we didn't. The funny thing is I've started asking people a question at the end of my podcast, and I was going to ask you, that was going to be my first question to you, right?
Okay.
And yeah, and I never asked you because we got distracted and started talking about something else completely. So yeah, I've started saying to people on the podcast at the end, like just as a random question, because I get different answers.
Mm.
Um, I'll, t- I'll tell you one of the answers in a second once I've told you the question. Is I just say to them, if you could, like, there's no rules. If you could go to any time in history, any place, anywhere, at any time, what music would you be listening to? Where would you be, and what would you be driving? Right.
Oh,
Yeah, right. That's what I mean. Like, it's the perfect response. And so with
yeah.
you, I was going to ask you the same question, right? And then also, like, you can modify it for different people as well. Um, so I had a bodybuilder on the other week called Teresa Ivansick, and I asked her that same question, but then I said to her, but here's a different angle on that question. If you could be training in any era with any bodybuilders, who would they be? When would it be? And what gym would you be in? You so you can,
Oh, wow.
yeah, you can
Yeah.
adapt it sometimes. So and I had this guy on the podcast, who's really nice, a guy called Sterling Cooper, and he's an ex-male porn star and adult male escort, and
Mm.
very interesting guy and quite intimidating to talk to, because you realize when you're talking to him, he's basically spent his entire working adult life being paid to have sex because he's that good at
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And as a
Wow.
male, you think that that's really good until you're kind of faced with a guy that is just like, damn, he's never not satisfied a woman, and it kind of just like, that's quite a claim. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and like I said, he was that kind of good. He became a male escort, and very wealthy women around the world paid to have sex with him.
Mm.
And it's just like wow, that there's yeah, it was just interesting to talk to him, and it was interesting to realize again how out of depth you feel about something that you should
Yeah.
actually feel quite comfortable with. Um, but when I asked him the question, and this is what I love about it, he wanted to go back to like the dinosaur era in an armored car, because he'd love to see dinosaurs, because that was his thing as a kid.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and it's just like, where the fuck did that come from?
Did that come from? Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, you know what I mean, you've like gone from male escort, male porn star to I'm
So,
10 years old,
dinosaurs.
and
Progression of the tree.
yeah, and I'd love to go back to sort of like the Jurassic era in an armored car. I can't remember what music he wanted to be listening to, but yeah, and dinosaurs. It's just like, did not see that coming anywhere. Just
So, so what was my question then, Dave? That
so
that we kind of missed.
the original
Oh,
question
oh, that
that
was
we
it.
was going to start the podcast on,
Oh.
before you and I
Oh.
started rambling, was if you could
Well,
be.
shall we flip the format then, and like leave that as like the finishing question?
Well, that's when I normally do it. I was flipping the format for you because
Oh. Oh. Okay.
I wanted to get into the 80s and stuff like that, but you and I just went off on a tangent.
We did the
And
80s.
yeah, and yeah, so that is my question to you, is if you could be at any era, any time, any when, what
Mhm.
would you be listening to? Where would you be? And what would you be driving?
Okay. So the era I'd, I'd like to go to, and this might surprise you, but I'd like to go to the Victorian era,
Okay.
just because I've kind of got into lots of books recently. So there's like lots of lots of stuff to be educated about. The kind of the music, it would probably be a bit of jazz, a bit kind of, but the kind of like traditional jazz, kind of Billie Holiday, that kind of jazz. Because Victorian, maybe you could go to like a jazz cafe, enjoy the
Yeah.
evenings. You might even get a bit of like the French jazz and the singing, so you get music through culture. Um, and then as well as that, kind of like swing big band, mix that all in with the jazz. So I'd be listening to that. And the
Where would you be?
car,
Where would you
where would I
be?
be? Oh, do you know, I would be, I think, just because they were happy in regards to my childhood times, I'd kind of say Germany
Yeah.
in a strange way, because lots of kind of happy childhood memories and lots of kind of big, wide open spaces and stuff. So I'd go there. And I think there might be lots of cultural, opportunities. Might be a few art galleries, bit of this, bit of that. Um, and the car I'd be driving, well, I don't know if it'd kind of be a car, but I can imagine like one of those things like you
Yeah.
see in kind of Titanic with the horses and like
Yeah, yeah,
not
horse
like a
and carriage.
carriage.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, but not like a grand carriage, but just like a kind of a comfy carriage kind of
Yeah,
thing.
like the Sherlock
Yeah.
Holmes taxi things, that two-seater things.
Yes. Yeah. 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 More like that than kind of grand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That's a perfect place to stop.
That is. Cheers,
Cheers, mate.
Dave.
Thank you.